Hey everyone, it's been over 2 minutes and I haven't been raped yet. Well, potentially it's because I kept my knees together. Hi, I'm Diana Davison, and I want to walk you through an important aspect to a few criminal cases that I've been covering lately. One of which resulted in a Canadian judge, Robin Camp, being hauled before a review board for comments made in the course of a sexual assault trial. Most notably, he asked the complainant why she didn't keep her knees together before acquitting the accused, Alexander Wagar.
So exit, stage left.
The prosecutor appealed and a new trial was ordered. The retrial ended with another acquittal last week on January 31st. Unsurprisingly, the new prosecutor immediately stated that she would be seriously looking at another appeal.
Ta-ra-ra-boom-de-ay, ta-ra-ra-boom-de-ay.
So this week, let's talk about psychos in the legal system and how social justice activism is actually undermining justice. After Alexander Wagar, a vulnerable young homeless man who spent 2 years in jail on false accusations waiting for trial, when he was acquitted again by a second judge, prosecutor Janice Walsh said she might try to get a third trial based on a couple of words or sentences in the verdict that she didn't like.
What do you say to that? What do you say to that?
As Christie Blatchford said, but the larger question, as Flynn put it in a text message Friday, is about judicial independence from political correctness gone amok. That's the heart of the matter still before the Canadian Judicial Council, now deliberating Camp's fate. And she finishes with, even the prosecutor in the second Wagar trial, Janice Walsh, appeared to be joining the fray when, after the verdict, she told reporters that she feared the ruling might discourage others from reporting sexual assault, and said, some of Le Grandeur's comments certainly give pause for future cases of sexual assault. Walsh said her office will consider whether to appeal the Le Grandeur decision. But is it the job of judges and the system to encourage complainants, those complaining of any crime, to report? And how many kicks at the can do prosecutors get before they find the decision, not to mention the language, they like?
I'll just snag him with his tea strainer.
We're dealing with ideologues. Here's how it goes. A prosecutor doesn't get a conviction, contacts their academic friends who go on a letter-writing campaign, and the judge finds themselves under review. This was a coordinated political effort. Well, you know what? I can play that game too. Starting today, I call upon all defense lawyers who observe prosecutors acting unethically, reversing the burden of proof, lying about evidence, or trying to confuse a judge about rules of evidence, or, like in the Robin Camp case, trying to mislead the judge about reasonable doubt in a sexual assault case. I want them under review for ethics. Let's start reporting these motherfuckers.
Heavens to Murgatroyd.
I'll get the ball rolling. In Canada, I think the prosecutor from Wagar's first trial, Ms. Hyatt Maghrabi, should be reviewed for attempting to reverse the burden of proof by meddling with reasonable doubt standards. From the transcript, Camp asks, Aren't you making this too complicated? If I believe his version, or if I'm incapable of rejecting his version, then on his version it was consensual sex. Maghrabi says, it's not enough for you to make conclusions based on his bare assertion that it was consensual. There has to be an evidentiary basis for him to successfully raise that defense. And it's only if there's an evidentiary basis upon which you can. Well, this is the opposite of the truth. And had Camp listened and believed, an injustice would have occurred. Much of how Robin Camp talked to Maghrabi was based on his aggravation that she was giving him improper counsel. I want her under review. How many times has Maghrabi gotten away with this?
Come out! Come out, come out! Wherever yous are!
Maghrabi and the second prosecutor, Janice Walsh, also tried to block testimony from the best available witness in both trials, a young woman who directly asked the accuser, "Are you going to have sex with him?" and then left them alone in the bathroom when the accuser said, "Yes." Maghrabi called that hearsay. Because of all the hype over Knees Together Camp, an obvious false accuser is being lauded in the press as a courageous hero. Well, she's not a hero. This trial was so infected with nonsense. This liar gave her testimony in the second trial wearing a pink button that says, "I heart consent." That's disgusting.
Inconsiderate is it? I'll show 'em.
I've got another prosecutor in BC I want investigated for actively refusing to acquire evidence that could undermine her case. I'll talk more about her later. Back to naming names. In the recently filed appeal for Daniel Holtzclaw in Oklahoma City, Proposition 4, appellants' rights to due process and a fair trial fell prey to overzealous prosecutors who shifted the burden of proof to the defendant, argued facts not in evidence, and improperly disparaged opposing counsel, flagrantly misrepresenting the evidence and prior argument. Again, we find shifting of the burden of proof. The state's final summation. There is not one witness in 6 weeks that said he did not commit the acts that he's accused of. Not one. Not only did this argument shift the burden of proof to the defendant, as the trial court itself seemed to recognize, it was also an improper comment on the appellant's privilege against self-incrimination. Defense counsel's objection was arguably sustained at the bench, but the jury would have had no reason to know that, as they were not admonished to disregard the argument. This isn't just grounds for appeal. The prosecutors should be investigated for misconduct. I've got 3 names for investigation here.
Anything you need. Name it, name it!
Lori McConnell, Galen Geiger, and their boss, David Prater. When the judge showed concern about the mob audibly chanting outside the courtroom, David Prater informed the judge the protesters had a permit. Prater was not the prosecutor in this courtroom, so I find it intriguing that he was involved in convincing the judge to allow the circus atmosphere to continue.
The kid has class, taste, finesse.
Later in the trial, Mr. Adams, that's the defense lawyer, informed the court that he could hear people outside the courthouse chanting, "Give him life, give him life," as well as a number of other things, and that it had been going on all morning. The court admonished the jury to disregard the chanting, which was likely as effective as throwing a skunk into the jury box and instructing them not to smell it. Indeed, 7 cell phones were confiscated from the courtroom for taking photos. Photos were taken of jury members. So, here's where we are. Judges are being removed from the bench for giving the wrong verdict in rape cases. Jury members are allowed to be threatened and interfered with. Police are being given awards for building rape cases out of evidence too weak to pass preliminary hearings. Activists are demanding new courts that remove due process and reverse the presumption of innocence. Women are using tribunals to terrorize universities into creating kangaroo courts. False accusations are on the rise, and we're doing nothing to stop it. I won't sit by and watch it happen. I'm kicking ass and taking names. I want the corruption exposed, and I want something done about it.
Ain't it the truth? Ain't it the truth?
Here's a ruling from an appeal case in Canada, and it's got really strong wording about a known problem. R versus Cusk. The prosecutor asked a forbidden question. She asked the accused to tell the court what the accuser's motive would have been for lying. Goes like this. There was no animosity when she left the hot tub? None whatsoever. And no animosity when she left the home when you saw her waiting for a ride? None whatsoever. And yet, so she doesn't have a motive, does she, for making this up? Defense counsel actually says, I'm not sure if this witness can answer that. And the court says, you answer the question to the best of your ability. Right. So here's why that question is forbidden. Asking an accused to provide a motive for their accuser.
Baby-o, baby-o, wherefore art thou, baby-o?
And a note on how often prosecutors get away with it. The second reason not to apply the proviso is that many appellate courts have condemned such cross-examination, especially by prosecutors questioning the accused, since at least 1925. We are not aware of any modern authority allowing it, yet it keeps happening, as the number of modern decided cases shows. In one province, not Alberta, there are so many appellate decisions condemning the practice, but not ordering a new trial, that one wonders whether the prosecutors there think that it's just a matter of do as I say, not as I do. Maybe that is why they keep asking the forbidden question. The practice should stop at once, and there's an obvious way to stop it. Well, condemnation from the appeal judges seems not to be working, so it's time to start putting the offending prosecutors up on ethics reviews. Maybe that'll work. If you're a defense lawyer and your client's rights are being violated by unethical prosecutors, report them. We need to start a list and keep track of these bastards. My contact info is in the description below. Justice must be done. And Justice must be seen to be done.
Figaro, Figaro, Figaro.